May we combine clarity of mind and kindness of heart. May we be impartial without bending to strong personalities. May we sacrifice self-interest for the good of the whole. May we do our work with love and clarity of vision for the benefit of those we represent. Please be seated.
Thank you.
So I will call the regular council meeting to order, and I would ask if there's any introduction of late items. Ms. Robertson? Thank you. So we move to the approval of the agenda.
So
and
moved.
As circulated, moved and seconded. Seconded, thank you. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We move on to a number of minutes. The August 17th council minutes, and a motion to adopt is presented. Moved and seconded. Any discussion, errors, or omissions? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have the August 17th public hearing minutes, and those are received for information.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. And we have the August 13th Committee of the Whole minutes for adoption as presented.
31.
Sorry, 31st, yes. Thank
So
you.
moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We move to delegations. We have a number of delegations tonight, and I welcome them all here. I see some people I recognize here, and we have our town crier. Thank you, Ben, for coming, and our inspector. Thank you for being here. We will move to our first one, which is a presentation by Ben Buss, our City of Duncan official town crier, and he has made a special cry for the golden age of Queen Elizabeth I and II. Of course, this is on the anniversary of Queen Elizabeth being the longest serving sovereign. Is that?
That's right. Wednesday the 9th.
Wednesday the 9th, yes.
Since then, I've been down to the levee on Saturday and in my uniform and had a few words with the Lieutenant Governor and lots of photographs and things. With, of course, my full outfit. I would like to set the stage this evening. I won't take too long, a little bit longer than I indicated. But anyway, Your Worship, City Councillors, members of the city, executive staff, and members of the public. Our celebration of the longevity of our Queen's reign is just the tip of the pyramid of our legal and political system. It stretches back to, in fact, the accounting of assets in the Domesday Book in 1066 and a few years after that, where you can't govern something unless you know what you've got. Magna Carta in August of 1215, the reconciliation between the Crown and Parliament in the 17th century, and since then the slow development legally and politically to our present level. I went to Teacher Training College, which overlooked Runnymede, which also overlooked Windsor Castle, for which I've had the privilege of singing in St George's Chapel with my choir from Canada. So I'm really hands-on in regard to this. Now, tonight, what I'm going to be presenting is 125 words celebrating the two queens, Queen Elizabeth I and the II. It's very much a part of history, but I try to keep everything together. Now, I don't have my scroll here because that ties up two hands, and I need hands. And with my handy little paddle here, which I've constructed, still with the crest on, I can slip it on my waistband, and I can wag my hands. So I've got two of these now. So 125 words on a set topic. It can be a proclamation, it can be an introduction, or in this case, it's just a history and it's a statement. I've tried to make it as interesting as possible, theatrical. Movement, I use my bugle. It's a bit loud. If you've got hearing aids, just turn them down a bit. I use all the assets of an actor. I try to keep interest, informed, and as I said, I'll move around. And as I move around, I represent different personages. Okay, so pop that away. I'll start outside with a bugle. I'm doing two things, a bugle and the OEA. Just to give you an example. Normally I just do one or the other. Here he goes. by a Spanish armada, guarded by her navy, financed by gold privateers, remains steadfast, triumphant. Halt, who goes there? Queen Elizabeth I, I have the body of a weak, feeble woman, but I have the heart and stomach of a king. 400 years later, Queen Elizabeth II inherited Britain, impoverished by war. I have, in sincerity, pledged myself to your service, and with all my heart, I shall strive to be worthy of your trust. Through times of great change and colonial succession, Queen Elizabeth has guided a successful Commonwealth of Nations to become, this September, the longest reigning British monarch. God save our Queen. God bless Canada. That is what I will be presenting in Central Otago on the South Island in 10 days' time.
Wonderful.
Two others.
Well, thank you so much for your service and for your theatrical work that you put into it. It's inspiring to people, and it's fun to watch, so that was very enjoyable.
This being was the First World War beautiful.
Oh, wow.
And they're very difficult to play, so I wasn't exactly on tone, but we're getting there.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Buss. Okay, and good luck with your presentation. Thank you. Okay, so for our second presentation this evening, we have Inspector Ray Caffertan, who is with his second quarter report for the RCMP detachment.
A difficult act to follow. I'll do my best. Thank you, Ben.
I'm
That
not
was
sure if
awesome.
his microphone's on or not. Is it on? Okay, great.
The light's on. Do I just need to lean? There we go.
Great.
I'll lean in a little bit more. Thank you very much. It is the second quarter they'll be reporting on, so the time period of April 1st to June 30th. A little tardy, and my apologies to Mayor and Council for the fact that our schedules haven't quite lined up, it would appear, and just haven't been able to come here and talk to you about the policing statistics. I will tell you that we're currently struggling with staffing levels, transfers out, some delays receiving some people in, as well as some medical issues and some new cadets that we have working for us that can't work on their own, all lead to fewer resources on the road. It's been a big challenge for us in the first quarter of the year and over the summer as well. Our minimum staffing levels for safety are at 5 officers per shift at any given time. We have 8 scheduled, but 5 is the minimum, and the other day we were down to 3 and looking for people on overtime. So it just impacted us heavily. That and an increased number of files and investigations that we've had over this quarter, about 250 more than this quarter last year, shooting for about 1,000 more this year than the previous year. Just adds up to a bit of a burden for the members that we have. I'm going to talk to you about the annual performance plan that we have, and this will be just a bit of an overview, as I generally do when I talk about this. The full report has been presented to Mayor and Council, and I'll be happy to take any questions at the end about that. The Prolific Offender Management Program continues to be an effective crime reduction strategy for us. Moves the key to reforming behavior back into the hands of individual offenders, documenting our assistance to help them get on track. The focus for this program in 2015, 2016 is going to move to putting accountability back on the offenders through scrutiny. Many of them, in fact all of them, are under court-ordered conditions, often to be within their residences between specific hours, because those are the hours in which they've been found committing crime in the past. So we had a look at the program that we had. We had a bit of a gap in terms of the frequency and the consistency of our door knocks to check that they were at home, and working with the local probation office, we'll be working in that direction to make sure people are compliant with the court-imposed conditions that they are supposed to live by. That's going to be the thrust of our prolific offender program for this year. A bit of a change as we retool the program, looking for an improvement next year, but a good area to monitor and measure as we move forward there. Traffic safety, again, is a priority virtually of every community in BC, and North Cowichan different, it's no different. We have high volumes of traffic in specific areas at peak times, and a real need to educate drivers about the specific speed zones that are designed to ensure pedestrian and public safety. We now enjoy the addition of permanent radar speed reading boards at both the north and south end of the community, and I'm confident that this will have an added effect of slowing drivers down. In fact, I do notice it as I drive through the area of my own vehicle that people are, not everyone, but a lot of people are attentive to the fact that it's brought to their attention. So that's a good add-on for us. The detachment does have a municipal traffic unit consisting of 3 police officers funded by the municipality of North Cowichan. And there's been a big focus on maintaining the integrity of that unit. In past, it's been disbanded to support other things. To date, in this fiscal year, they've generated 1,100 contacts, or they've stopped and talked, sometimes written paper, to 1,100 people. Incidentally, 200 of those within the city of Duncan, so there is a spin-off benefit from that. And as well, the South Island Traffic Services are located in Chemainus. They're a provincial unit. Their responsibility is essentially from Souk and Sydney all the way up to Ladysmith. And we do get some residual benefit from them as well, and there's a table in the report that talks about that. But this quarter, year to date rather, over 1,000 contacts from them. So trying to be visible on the highways, not always trying to be necessarily writing a ticket. A warning is often as good as a ticket, but the visibility and the presence of marked police cars and enforcement out there is a very, very positive step to slowing people down on some of those high collision intersections that we do have. In terms of visibility, our initiatives during the past quarter, or the quarter that I'm reporting on, are largely foot patrols and bar watch program that we have. Our bike patrols slowly come into play over the summer and peak during our crime reduction unit. I'm probably at the forefront of the foot patrol, certainly in town here. I like to get out and I like to talk to people in town here and sort of lead by example in that respect. And I'd be really interested in any feedback that you folks have with respect to the citizens of the community. It's always interesting to walk downtown, particularly in the summer, and actually take the time to smile and talk to people for a little bit. I'm continuously amazed by how far people come from to spend time walking through town, looking at the totems and visiting here. It's not just communities in the island or communities in BC. There are people from all over the world that I've had conversations with here in the last 6 months. So it's a great deal of fun for me, and it's I think a real positive reflection of the community, how many people come here and take the time to stop by. So something I never realized, having lived in the area for 14 years, I did not realize the impact and the extent of the exposure that we had around the world. It's very interesting for me. The domestic violence aspect of our annual performance plan is focused this year on provincial standards compliance. Has been a real elevation in terms of police services branch of the Attorney General's office in enforcing or coming up with some specific standards for domestic violence investigations. These are very, very high profile investigations that, if they're not handled correctly, often go very, very wrong, and we've seen that on the island here in Oak Bay with the Lee investigation, as well as there was a file a few years back in Merritt where a family was deceased by Mr. Schoenberg there. They really shine light onto why we need to treat these investigations with the diligence that we do. And I'm very proud to say that we actually are leading the charge, or leading the standard in the province of BC. Corporal Lita Watson, who heads our domestic violence unit, is called upon to teach the methodology and the practices that we have in place here in Duncan across the province, being at the cutting edge of the way that we're doing business in terms of those compliance pieces. So that, coupled with the Interagency Case Assessment Team, or ICAT, it might be a term that you have heard already, or you certainly will be hearing. Once again, it's a joint effort mandated by Police Services Division, bringing ourselves, as well as the Ministry for Children and Families, Mental Health and Probation, and any other community agencies that have an interest in the most violent or most prolific offenders in the domestic violence world, and bringing all of those resources to bear to find proactive solutions for, certainly in support of victims, but as well in terms of offender management or movement of offenders from an established pattern of behavior. So those are mandated across the province, and we have signed off recently our own interagency case assessment team, and you'll see that come into play here in the next, well, starting in September and going forward as far as I can reasonably project. So very, very proud of the work that's being done there. I did talk a little bit about, at the last reporting, about statistics in terms of calls for service, and that report is also included in the police report. Again, this report is intended just to give you an idea of the types of calls we get from the public in terms of frequency and volume. And based on numbers that we have so far, we seem to be headed for a file count in excess of 17,000 calls for service this year. That would be up from 15,500 in 2012 and growing steadily to 16,300 in 2014. So a significant increase in calls for service. And the last thing I'll talk to you a little bit about is something called the General Duty Staffing Analysis, or the term that you might hear at the UBCM if this is talked about would be the managing patrol or performance or managing police performance. So we've initiated a study here to look at all aspects of uniform policing duties in detail. Now this has been done across the Lower Mainland RCMP detachments already, and we're the first detachment outside of the Lower Mainland to initiate this process. This study has been used in major centers across North America to examine staffing levels and workloads of police departments. The purpose of the study is to review our calls for service in an effort to ensure that we have the right number of officers and the most appropriate scheduling in place to maximize our resources, our resource levels at peak times. So we really need to work with the existing resources that we have, make sure we have them on the road and in the right places at the right time so that we're making the most of the people that we do have. But I'm confident this will give us an accurate review of the number of calls that we receive, the specific types of calls, the response times, and how long it takes them to attend those calls. I'm looking forward to seeing results of the analysis as it tracks what we do, where we do it, and how long it takes us to get the job done. We should have a very accurate understanding of how many police officers it takes to conduct business in any specific area within our boundaries when this is done, whether it's North Cowichan, Cowichan Tribes, City of Duncan, or within the CVRD. One of the spin-off effects of this, and I'll talk just sort of anecdotally about what we do and the way that we do business, and it's a little bit different than many police departments. We have ownership of a file within any 12-hour period. The watch that's working takes ownership of what happens in that period of time. Occasionally what that means is we respond and attend to a very low priority call, but we make a physical appearance there, and then the reality is that officer may be off shift for the next 4 days. And as early as this morning, and I hear it constantly where the members are coming in, and at the watch briefing I'm asking them to talk about what's on their plate, what do they have to do for the day so that their watch commander is aware of their pressures. And they talk about having to document the files they got on their last night shift because they haven't done that yet. And there's no other police department anywhere that does that. So part of this analysis is in a real-time record keeping or status keeping by the police officers as they're doing their work. And the result of that may be that some lower priority calls take longer for us to respond to as we actually take a file, document the action taken on the file, and conclude that file before we go available for the next call. So there is a lag time that will come with that. For my officers, they're a little frustrated because it means they're going to come to work and there might be 5 or 6 files stacked up waiting for them. And they're not used to that. They're used to dealing with things at the front end. But the reality is that we need to not have police officers documenting their files 4 or 5 days later and then coming into a busy day, getting carried on with that work, and sometimes it goes days without documentation. And if one of you were to call, or a member of the public were to call and ask about one of those files, I have nothing that I can even read to say where we're at with the investigation. And there's not another police department anywhere that does business like that. So those lower priority calls may take a little longer for us to get to, but we are going to work through the calls in the order that we get them and document them properly. It's been extremely burdensome for the people who work for me. I have 8 laptop computers that we generally loan out for people who are going on courses and that sort of thing. 2 of them are out on course and 6 of them are with supervisors so they can work at home in their off hours to catch up before they have to come in on their days off. And I just don't think that that's right. So we need to work at establishing what the right numbers are. I need to make sure that I shift my people appropriately to get them in the right place, and we need to just find a better way to do business. So you may get some feedback in terms of how long it takes us to attend to lower priority calls. If you do, I'm happy to talk about that or look at those specific instances. But those are the things that we have in play right now, and that's the report from policing for that quarter. I'd be happy to take any questions anyone might have of me.
Okay. Is there any questions from council? Councillor Bell.
Well, I'll start with a question, but I have a comment. The question is, what can we do to support you? And the comment is, I think that I'm glad that you're doing that, and I understand the frustration. I can hear the frustration. If you continue to do business how you're doing business, it's actually on the backs of your employees. So instead of being staffed and funded appropriately, people are having to do their work outside of their work hours, and then that's when you lose people to other places, and also it's hard to retain staff, and it's just not a healthy way to work, especially if you're helpers. So I appreciate that you're doing that, and I think at some point when it gets bad enough, you just have to push back and say, this is how long it's going to take unless we get the resources that we need. So what can we do? A lot of us are going to the UBCM, and of course we're here as advocates for the community, and obviously you're getting an increase in 1,000 files is a lot. What do you need us to do? What can we do?
You know, in terms of support, I feel very supported as a police department here by the communities in this area. I think that conversation around this process at the UBCM to ensure that everyone believes that in the process and that it's validated. There was a prior process called the police resourcing methodology that the province didn't have faith in, and even talking to the people of the RCMP in E Division about that particular process, they say this is a much more valid, much more scientific and a broader base to work from. So everyone seems to agree that this is a much better platform to embark upon an analysis of what we do. So I really think that just a conversation around this isn't going to be limited to us. I expect this to roll out in all the detachments across the province at some point. We're just the first one outside of the Lower Mainland to latch onto this. And of course, there are many pressing, sort of issues locally, from the building of a new detachment, the appropriate costs associated to that, the appropriate size, and the municipality is saying, what is the appropriate size? How many police officers should we have here? Because they don't want to engage in a building that then needs to be renovated or expanded upon, shortly after being completed. So those things all hinge on, what is the appropriate number of police officers. So I think if there's a conversation around that, if you could engage in that conversation, ultimately that's helpful to everyone. Make no mistake, I feel very supported here. So I'm not meaning, I hope I didn't come off like that was sour grapes. It's just the reality of what my guys deal with day to day.
Any other questions from council? I have one question with respect to any concern you may have with respect to some of the arson cases that we've had recently.
Thank you, Mayor Kent. Because I looked at this report and I had the same concern, and I asked the person who puts my analysis together, say, do we have a firebug in the area? I need to know. So I have the specific files here with respect to the arsons. I've had a look at them myself. One is unfounded of the 5, which means that we went there. Initially, the fire department had tended, and they felt it was suspicious because the house was not inhabited, but it turned out to be a wiring issue. Of the others, 4 of them are man-made or intentionally set. 3 out of them all have the common element of an abandoned building, and the 4th was an outside fire. Very concerning to me, but in the sense that do we have a single person responsible for that? We have enough information from the people who called in or saw what happened that we can rule them out as not being the same people. And I can tell you that since this reporting period, we have had none in the city of Duncan. So in terms of a pattern, the pattern has certainly been broken, or it's not as bad as it initially looked. When I looked at the report, I had the same sense that you did. Yeah.
Okay. I know you won't get into details in terms of advance of any
No, it
investigation.
is very troublesome in a
yeah,
summer like we've had with the weather that we've
absolutely.
had. That's very bothersome for sure.
And there still are some other abandoned buildings, and my concern also went towards buildings that might be under construction as well.
Yeah, and I thought that was worth mentioning, and just in the analysis of what was going on there. Those were, 3 out of 4 were certainly abandoned buildings, and that is problematic.
Okay, any other councillors then at this point? Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And great. Thank you. So we move to our third, and this is a delegation, and it's Demir Wallner from the United Way with respect to the United Way campaign.
I'm just old enough have had flashbacks when Ben pulled out that paddle to the principal's office and the Board of Education. Not that I ever saw the inside of a principal's office. Good evening, Your Worship, councillors. I'm Demir Walliner, and I'm here as the campaign chair for this year's Cowichan United Way campaign. I'm here to ask the City of Duncan to partner with us this fall in proclaiming a United Way Week, or if we're particularly ambitious, a United Way Month, to raise awareness for the 2015 campaign and to bring community focus to the many, many local agencies that the United Way works with and supports. Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Volunteer Cowichan, Vancouver Island Crisis Society, Cowichan Neighborhood House Association, Cowichan Family Caregivers Support Society, and those are all precious. But there's one that is particularly precious to me, and that's the Clements Center. My autistic son just finished his 3rd year at Clements, and the transformation in him has been nothing short of miraculous. He came to Clements as a gifted but socially confused little boy, diagnosed on the autism spectrum, and they gave him the tools to not just passively survive in our social world, but to start taking an active role in it and to make and to manage his own friendships. That wouldn't have happened without access to those programs. And the Clements Center, like many of our local agencies, is struggling to meet the demands for services. My son was lucky, but it's not really in my nature to just accept my own luck. Not when I know firsthand that there are many other families with struggles just as challenging as my son, but they aren't getting the assistance that they so desperately need. And that's why I agreed to take an active role in this year's United Way campaign. The program's United Way funds at our local agencies touch nearly 1 in 3 Cowichan residents. Our focus is on early childhood development, health, and education. We don't just fund organizations, we fund specific programs with measurable, achievable outcomes that touch as many local needs as possible. And when possible and necessary, we also provide organizational assistance to those agencies. I know some of you yourselves have served on the boards of charitable organizations, so you know firsthand how limited capabilities can be. By partnering with us in a campaign to paint the town red this fall, you can help rally the community to help with the big picture mission. You can help raise the profile of all the Cowichan organizations doing such wonderful and necessary work in our community. And it's not just about raising profiles. Turning the streets of Duncan into, for example, a mosaic of chalk art, weather permitting, also turns Duncan into more of a destination for our local residents. This creates opportunities to work with the local business community, for example, the DBIA, to create and host events that ultimately increase the resources available to the selfless volunteers doing the hard frontline work. So our ask is pretty simple. This October, help us paint the town red by proclaiming a United Way month/week so we can bring much needed funding to the local programs run by local volunteers for the benefit of local residents. Duncan is the heart of our community, of our Cowichan community. Let us stand together and show just how strongly that heart can beat. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you very much. Much appreciated. I'll take, would you take questions from council?
Absolutely.
It's not a question. I think I have to declare a conflict.
Well, we're doing a declaration of a month. I don't think there's any conflict in that.
You don't think so?
I wouldn't think so, no.
I've even written a proclamation. You don't have to write it.
Just because the United Way funds the agency that I'm
Yeah.
executive director.
For a
Understood.
proclamation, that is not a,
It's not a conflict?
not a conflict, no. Okay, so with no questions from council, appreciate it and good luck with your campaign, and hopefully it's the biggest one and the easiest one you've had. So, and I appreciate some new people sort of back home again in a sense. So we met the other day when you in the United Way office, and again at Success by 6 the other day. So, thanks for being here, Councillor Staples.
And please keep us updated too on any of the things that are going on in terms of painting the town red and how we can participate. That would be great.
Oh, absolutely. We'd be delighted to, yes.
There's a pancake breakfast.
Yes, there's a kickoff. The kickoff is on the
Next Saturday, so the 19th.
19th.
That's right.
Great.
I actually move the recommendation
Okay.
that council declare the month of October United Way Month in the city of Duncan, and that council declare the week of October 4th to 10th, 2015 as United Way Week in the city of Duncan.
Okay, moved and seconded. Okay. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous.
Thank you.
Okay. So we'll be happy to join you, and I'll see you at the kickoff. Saturday. Okay,
Can you
so,
introduce the other two? One of you guys is the new executive director, I'm assuming? and
yes.
then- I just wondered if you could introduce, because we'll see you around, so who's, are you the new executive director?
Yes, my name is Linda Brosnick, and I'm the new executive director. I have worked for United Ways for a number of years. I was with United Way of Canada for a period of 10 years, and 5 years prior to that as a local executive director of United Way of Sudbury District. So I have lived in the Cowichan district in United Way for the last close to 12 years now, and really look forward to working in helping to rebuild this United Way. We're currently this year working and striving towards $250,000, which, as you know, particularly Michelle, that it is just a drop in the bucket for what is really needed in the community. So we're planning this year to work very closely with businesses and donors to help raise that profile and to provide the dollars that are really needed to keep our community a safe and healthy community in any way that we can. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and also for allowing the town to be painted red and the profile to be raised in the month of October.
Great.
So thank you so much. We
Thanks.
also have with us our campaign chair. So Tammy.
I'm Tammy Isaacson. I've been on board with United Way Cowichan for just over a year. I focus on resource development, so fundraising, campaign side of things. I was born and raised in Duncan, so I really love being back here and working with the community.
Okay, welcome. Okay, thanks. Thanks so much. Okay, the next order of business is the report of the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Dervatai.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll just touch on a couple of the points. The residential water metering, the communications program has gotten started, and we are anticipating the start of actual installations will occur within the next month. The Government Street bike lane project is just about complete. Only the green paint for the bike lane conflict areas is remaining. The line painting as well, generally around town, is also essentially complete. Only a few center lines, such as on Canada Avenue and whatnot, lane delineations in a few areas are remaining. The Cedar Avenue upgrades, Winley, as mentioned at the previous meeting, has completed this upgrades to the sewer main. However, we're still awaiting a clear water sample of the new water main before we can start with the tie-in to the services. Notices have been sent to the residents to keep them updated, and another update is actually going out tomorrow. Perhaps the last one I'll touch on, I can of course answer any questions you have later in the meeting, but the other one I wanted to touch on was that the advisory design panel, the first meeting has been set for September 28th. Was there 2:30? As there's no applications in process at this moment, the panel will take this opportunity to start discussions on a review of the development permit area design guidelines and a bit of an orientation as well. I think that's all I'll probably highlight today.
Okay, thank you. So we move next to bylaws, item 7.1, which is a bylaw 3144, land use contract discharge, 361 Festibert Street. That was the item that was the subject of the public hearing earlier this evening. And a motion that council consider giving third reading and adoption to the land use contract discharge bylaw number 3144 2015, bylaw to discharge the land use contract for 361 Festibert Street.
Second.
Moved, seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We move to item 7.2, bylaw 3115.01, delegation of authority amendment. That council give first three readings. The delegation of authority amendment bylaw number 3115.01 2015, a bylaw to authorize the CAO to approve minor revisions to the development permits in accordance with the intent of the development permit area guidelines of the official community plan, and 2, to appoint, promote, discipline, and dismiss employees other than dismissal of officers subject to the contract of employment or a collective agreement.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We move to bylaw number 3145. This is a permissive tax exemption bylaw 2015. that council give first 3 readings to the permissive tax exemption bylaw number 3145, 2015, a bylaw to grant permissive tax exemptions for 2015. Moved,
Second.
seconded, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. We now move to bylaw 3146, a permissive tax exemption with respect to the Island Quarter Foundation for 2015, and I will have to recuse myself for discussion of this bylaw as I have a conflict as I am a board of directors.
Okay,
Okay?
thank you. So bylaw 3146, permissive tax exemption, Island Corridor Foundation 2015, and the motion is that council give first 3 readings to permissive tax exemption bylaw number 3146, 2015, a bylaw to grant a permissive tax exemption for the Island Corridor Foundation. Somebody like to move that? And second? And is there any discussion? Yes?
I just would like to reiterate what I talked about at Committee of the Whole, that after sitting on this council for 4 years, we have still never had a delegation come to talk to us about the Island Corridor, its future, anything that is happening. And I hesitate to pass this without knowing where the future of the Island Corridor Foundation is going, and without any reporting process. So I think that's all that I have to say about it at this time, other than I would like to request that we do invite the Island Corridor Foundation to come and present to council in the very near future.
Would that require, it's a separate motion, or is that just, okay, all right. You wanted to say something?
I did. Sorry, I don't even know what I'm choking on. I concur, and I am going to vote against this because they are the only persons or organizations coming forward without a budget, and so we don't normally do permissive tax exemptions without a budget. And again, in the 4 years I've been here, I don't even know what they do. So,
Yes, Ms. Robertson?
Madam Chair, I just want to advise that permissive tax exemption bylaws are required by law to be adopted by a certain date, and with 2 members missing and 1 that might be voting opposed, the bylaw would be defeated, and we would have to hold a special council meeting to reintroduce the bylaw again when we have a full council. So I just wanted council to be aware of that.
Yes, Mr. Duvertai?
Sorry, I didn't. Just to add one other point is we've never asked the Island Corridor Foundation to provide applications or budget on the understanding that it was somewhat decided a number of years ago that this would be, I wouldn't say automatic, but essentially we haven't asked them to go through the same process as the others on the understanding that it's basically owned by the city and other municipalities and regional districts and so on that are all essentially the owners of the Island Corridor Foundation. So after a few years ago when they made first application, we've been simplifying the process for them. So I'm sure they would have. In fact, I got an email today from the foundation asking if there was additional information necessary, and I let them know that I didn't think that was necessary. So we would be asking them for a delegation in the future because that had come up at the Committee of the Whole, but I actually told them that they didn't need to at this time.
Okay.
So if we were to ask for additional information from now until our next council meeting, is that enough time based on what?
What it would mean is if council still wish to give them a permissive tax exemption, that we would require an additional, some special council meeting between now and the end of October to enact the bylaw, because you have to have 2 meetings for it to go through. So it's not impossible, it just would require another meeting.
Yes.
I'm not sure where the miscommunication came, because in the Committee of the Whole meeting, I thought it was really clear that we had a lot of debate about it, and that we wanted to have them come present, and that we wanted to see a budget. I thought it was unanimous we wanted to see a budget, but maybe I misunderstood that.
I'll just put myself in here and then go to you. My understanding at the Committee of the Whole was that we were going to pass this time, but that most of us were unwilling to pass this again unless they came as a delegation and gave us some more information. Did I get that wrong?
That was the general understanding that I had from the meeting as well.
Yeah.
I still don't feel overconfident in passing it, and at the same time, I understand the timeline that we're running into, and this is something that we've come back on. We come down on all of these small organizations for not providing us enough detail and information, and now we're saying, okay, we'll just accept what we don't even know and pass it, and that's where I struggle with it. And personally, I would prefer to wait until we had more information. But then I'm also requesting council to have an additional council meeting. So,
did you want to say something?
I just wanted to, I guess actually I'm just confirming that what your recollection of the meeting was how I understood it, which is why I didn't ask for additional information, because it was intended, or at least described at the meeting through the discussion, that it would be for the next one. Had I realized, I would have obviously asked for it prior to this meeting. That said, having an additional meeting wouldn't, I mean, if that's what council wants to do, that's fine.
Well, we're leaving it, we're cutting it pretty close to the quick here, but let's just see how this vote goes. So, unless you have more comments?
Well, I just wanted to say I apologize because I voted it down in the last one, so I heard obviously what I wanted to hear. But if that's what you heard,
Okay.
one of us heard wrong. But I voted it down last time and
Okay.
decided to vote it down.
and so can I just ask a question for clarification then? If
Yes.
we were to vote against this at this point in time, we would still have to bring it back. Is that correct? So we would still have to have that additional meeting to. Okay, so either way, we would be looking at that. Correct? Either way, if I was to make a motion at this point to table it until we had more information, or we go through with the vote, if the vote would be defeated, either way we'd have to have an additional meeting to review this, is what I'm hearing. Is that correct?
Maybe the simpler way for me to explain it is if we have even one person vote down the bylaw tonight, it would be defeated and would have to come back to a next meeting for reconsideration with a full complement. Because the bylaws have to
Adoption by October 31st.
first, right?
So I'm, just for point of clarification, why would one person voting against it defeat it? If
For
the
t-
other
for
three
tonight, there
are,
would. My apologies, I'm thinking defeated on a tie vote, but.
if it's a tie vote, it's defeated. But if
Right,
one
3 or 4,
person,
my apologies.
Yeah,
My
okay.
apologies.
all right. Any other comments, Councillor Bruce?
Is staff familiar with any other municipalities? Has anybody turned this request down? Because it must be up and down the island.
Yeah, I'm not, many of the other municipalities up and down the island have actually given them a 10-year tax exemption. So I'm not aware of any that have denied.
Yeah, I think at this point in state, I would support it and then request more information for down the road. But I think it goes full circle because if we don't give the exemption, we actually own it anyways through the island corridor. So, but yeah, I would support it now and ask for more information for clarity later.
Okay, I am going to call the question. All those in favor of the tax exemption? Opposed? Motion fails. Then is there a motion to ask for them to come to a special meeting?
Or that, or to provide the information that is missing from the application, yes.
Okay, do I hear a seconder?
Can I just get a point of clarification?
Yes.
If, when we make a decision and it's voted down, do we generally bring it back up so that when we have more quorum to revote? Is that general practice?
I'll let Karen explain that.
You're testing us.
You know, normally we don't. I think I can answer that. Normally, this wouldn't, but I am sure the mayor will bring it forward again. Because he, even though he can't vote on it because he sits on the board.
I did just hear Mrs. Robertson say that it has to come back regardless. That's what she said earlier, so.
My belief, and this is a unique situation, is that the mayor can request that something be reconsidered by council. He would still be required to leave the room when the vote was taken and the discussion occurred. So if we had everyone with the mayor, we would then have 6 members of council to vote on it, which may or may not pass depending how people are choosing to vote at that time.
We'll look into that. The main thing is it's defeated as it stands, and we will, if you would like, get some additional information regardless.
That would be great, because that is, I mean, I voted it down at the last meeting as well, and that is what we requested, was additional information. And while there was, not everyone is here to vote, I don't feel like I need to change my vote because not everyone is here, so.
Right, so you made a motion for request, and you seconded that. Any comments or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you very
Thank
much. Could you call the mayor back in, please?
So in the meantime, can we look into that? If mayor's in conflict, can you keep putting things back on the table if he's in conflict?
Well, it's coming back
We'll
now
look into
anyways.
that. Okay, I'm just curious, because that would surprise me.
And technically it comes back now anyways, because you've asked for more
Yeah,
information.
but I'm curious about that technicality,
Yeah.
because it would be an
That's all
endless
we
cycle
wanted
then.
in the first place.
So we're on 8.1.
Thank you. Okay, we move to reports of committees. We have the August 31st Committee of the Whole meeting recommendations, and I will pass that to the chair, Councillor Jackson, to report on those.
Thank you. 8.11, recommendation from the August 25th, 2015 Totem Committee meeting in regard to the re-raising and First Nations mask dance ceremony of the Stan Modeste Salish Bear Totem. That council approved the expenditure of up to $1,700 for the purchase of items and honorariums for the ceremony to take place when the Stan Modeste Salish Bear Totem is returned to the Malahat, and that funds for the ceremony come from the Totem Committee budget, and that a Delmore Johnny framed print be given to Malahat First Nation for preparing the food for the ceremony, and that framing costs up to $200 come from the Totem Committee budget. So moved.
Okay.
Is that
And
right?
as a seconder, okay, thank you. Any discussion on this? Councillor Staples.
I would just like to say I'm looking forward to the ceremony, and I've heard that so far all the meetings that you were there this morning have been going
Yes.
very well, and that everyone is very looking forward and excited to this. So just well done to the committee for taking this forward in such a good way. And it's October 6th, is that correct?
7th.
7th, October 7th. What time is it, Ms. Mayor? 11?
And I understand they're going to try and arrange for a bus.
Yeah, we met with the chief and a number of other representatives from the family, as well as Tricia Maya and myself and Peter today, Mr. Durbatai, and went through a lot of the details and logistics, and just because of some of the traffic issues and safety with respect to the Malahat, we're looking to try to transport. Of course, it's not going to be an open invitation for anyone to arrive. It's a very congested and small area there on the Malahat. But one thing they did really clearly express to us was how grateful they were for the city paying attention to this and paying attention to the protocol. It was very, very special to them and to the family involved. So yeah, and I'll report further on that meeting during my report. So that motion is passed and moved and seconded. Any discussion further on it? Did we know? Okay. I think I did not call the question, and I don't believe. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Move to item 8.2, which is the September 8th Tourism Committee recommendations. And do we have a Tourism Committee member here? Okay. Would you like to report on those recommendations? Thank you.
Certainly read them out for you. Oops. Okay, the Tourism Marketing Strategy RFP, that staff be directed to issue the Tourism Marketing Strategy RFPs substantially in the form attached to the September 8th, 2015 report of the Corporate Services Coordinator. Can I do them all?
Yes.
Okay. 8.2.2, 2016 Tourism Association of Vancouver Island publication, that the design and layout, minus the Duncan BIA logo and website address, of the 2015 TAVI ad titled Come Off the Highway, as attached to the September 14, 2015 Council agenda be approved, and that funds in the amount of $5,475 plus applicable taxes come from the Tourism Committee budget, and that the ad be forwarded to Tourism Cowichan for the 2016 publication of the Vancouver Island Vacation Guide. 8.2.3 Quench Fountain signage, that staff be directed to develop a pedestal sign for the Quench Fountain similar to the totem signs to be installed adjacent to the fountain on Craig Street, and that costs for the sign come from the Tourism Committee budget.
Okay, those are moved. Is there a seconder? Okay, discussion on any one of those? Questions? Councillor Jackson?
I helped put together some of the text around that, and it occurred to me that, Councillor Bruce, did you not donate $1,000 towards that statue, that fountain?
That was quite a few years ago, I think.
It was 2012, yeah, okay. So Councillor Bruce's name has been left off the list of the funders. We had the lady.
Treasurer,
yes?
Ms. May, you have something, comment on that?
Councillor Jackson, I looked into it, and there were 3 or 4 donors, and yes, Councillor Bruce was one of them, so I do have a list.
Oh, marvelous. Thank you very much.
All right, and that will likely be proofed well before it's developed. So, okay, with that, I'm going to call the question on those motions. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion carries. We move to correspondence. We have item 9.1, which is correspondence from the Royal Canadian Legion, flag raising, Poppy Tag Days, and Remembrance Day, and a motion to approve all of those dates and times, which is in the motion.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have item 9.2, Proclamation International Day of Older Persons 2015. That's a new one. I don't think I've seen that one. And that is for October 1st to be proclaimed International Day of Older Persons in the City of Duncan.
So moved.
Second. It covers a great deal of our citizenry here, I think. So any questions or discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. We have no new business, and so we go to reports of council and the mayor. So any council would like to report? Councillor Jackson and Bell and Staples. Okay, and my report will be quite brief. There's quite a bit going on, but I just will keep it brief. Just to expand on today's meeting with Chief Seymour at Cowichan Tribes, after we had a meeting specifically with respect to the pole raising and the ceremony that's going to be around that, Mr. Gurvatai and I stayed by for a little while after to talk a little bit about their transportation work and study. There were meetings with staff prior, and so we thought it was a good opportunity to discuss this with Chief Seymour. So he did provide Mr. Durvatai with the actual study documents to work around some of the things that they're planning in and around the Samana Village area, and with respect to traffic, pedestrian safety, and a number of those things. So we were able to just have about a 10-minute chat about some of the things that would be important, and talk to him a little bit about things that we would want to be encouraging and things that we may not want to be encouraging. And so we got some good indication from the chief that it would be wise for us to begin working together and maybe incorporate some of the things in our RFP that we'll be putting forward with respect to that area. So that, I think, was very useful. And so Mr. Durvatai will continue likely the staff contacts that we've had in the past, and look to planning those pieces together, at least being able to inform ourselves through RFP information that may be useful for them as well. Because it is, as we all know, a very congested area. There's lots of traffic and lots of movement in that area. Attended the CVRD board meeting on Wednesday. Not real any big highlights. We've been again grappling with policy over the grant and aid. at the regional district, and Wednesday was no exception. In fact, it got referred back again to committee of the whole, even though executive had met, the executive committee had met and come up with some particular policy amendments and changes for the board to vote on. They did not vote on any and wanted to discuss it further. So it was good, and I think it's something that may inform us later if we decide with respect to our grant and aid policy whether there might be changes that are useful there. Although I think ours is fairly tight. That was about the major highlight there. I also, just as a project, and I also want to recognize we have Councillor Joyce Benson from the District of North Cowichan here tonight. She was also in attendance at the Water Wheel Square in Chemainus, the opening with John Lefebvre and many of North Cowichan's councillors. I was there with my Island Coast Economic Trust hat on, and they've done a fantastic job there, and there was quite a few people there, and obviously Chemainus, as always, pulls together and decides what they're going to do and get behind it, and look forward to them seeing some other changes in Chemainus as well. And it's always been a beautiful little community, and they're very collaborative together, and they work together well. So congratulate them on that opening. So that'll be it, and I will ask Councillor Jackson if you'd like to report.
Yes, I'd just like to report on the Community Centre Commission, the Island Savings Centre Commission, just a couple of things. One, the Commission is exploring ways that it can work more closely with the Cowichan Valley Capitals, who have new recent owners who are trying to get the club on a more financially stable basis. And so we will be looking into ways that we can partner and perhaps get that club going a lot better. They have a lot of ideas, and it's going to be interesting working with them. Also, I think after October, John Elzinga will be leaving us to go and work at the CVRD. I understand he's going to be the sort of the supervisor of all of the recreation in the Cowichan Valley, and we will be getting a new John Elzinga. So that should be happening sometime within the next month.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Bell.
We had after being away for the summer, we had the Mayor's Advisory on Disability
Issues?
MACD, meeting, and some of the projects they were working on have been finalized, including businesses being more accessible. Thought they did a really good job. I didn't do it, but I'm surprised you didn't mention it. Did you want to mention it?
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, they did a really good job on some of the brochures and for information for businesses. And there's also a letter going out to the minister about some of the persons with disabilities insurance and the lack of being able to work and how much money they take. So if anybody wants to sign that and send it off. And then the Community Safety Advisory Commission under the CVRD has the annual report. And I would actually I'll distribute it. It's also on the website, but it's basically all the work that's been done on the Community Safety Advisory Commission in the last year. And the project team there does a really good job of reports, and they're very visually stimulating and very informative. So I was going to bring a hard copy to leave in the Councillors Lounge, and also I'll send everybody a copy. There's a lot in it, so I won't.
They also presented to the Regional District Board on Wednesday as well. It was a very good presentation.
Yeah, so we're setting our priorities for next year. Next.
Okay, Councillor Staples.
Thank you. I just wanted to do a quick update around attending recently some of the flows meetings for the river, and just wanting to say it's really nice to see everyone really working together from everywhere, working on this, and it's been a good process to be a part of, and interesting. You know, I know that it's been something that everyone in the valley has been so aware of this summer. And even people who normally don't necessarily aware of it or not follow the fact that we're under stage 3. Even now, people are still focusing on conserving water. No one seems upset or concerned in the community that it's starting to rain and it's fall and everything. Everyone is very, very hyper aware. So I just want to thank everyone in the Valley for that. And one thing I wanted to mention, it's not so much a report from any committee, but it's a report of what's been happening with the white spot since the fire. And I don't know if everyone here has heard that a lot of the local restaurants reached out to the staff and have offered to hire them. There was a story about that in the paper, and there's fundraisers going on, and just how amazing the community is, to come together in that way, immediately. And I just want to thank all the businesses in our community for what they've done, because it's just lifted everybody's spirits out from something that could have been and is so tragic, but it's also helped people bridge that. So I think that's fantastic, and it speaks a lot to the community that we live in. In terms of committee meetings, the BIA, I don't really have much to report from that meeting other than one thing that came up around the Kenneth Street parking lot, and I guess the bumpers seem a little bit high, so they've been getting a lot of people talking about them running into them, which really surprised me. I went down there with my car. Mind you, my van's pretty high, so maybe if you're in a lower car. And also about the Quench. Is Quench working properly now?
Peter Lewis will be meeting with the plumber to try and finally resolve the sprayer and the beak. Right now it's plugged.
Okay. Thank you. I just didn't want to forget that. It's in my notes. And then just to update on our amazing youth council. They have they just started school, most of them, and they've been asked very last minute to join different committees and come and sit on different committees. Thank you, Michelle, for sending them that information. And one of them is on the library, the Regional Library Board, and the other is on the Traffic Safety Advisory Committee. And our Junior Mayor Capps went to that, and she said it was just absolutely fascinating, and she's so excited about being on it. And her and Councillor Kananowitz are going to alternate so that they can not take up so much of their time. And they're going to get more and more requests, I think, like that. And so they're also reaching out to other young people who really want to be engaged. So I just wanted to update everyone on some of what they're doing.
Great, thank you. I just want to reiterate the issue with the employees at White Spot. We did hire one woman there that's working for us, and she's a very hard worker and very grateful to get some hours. That's been great. So we took her on, and we'll be able to give her as many hours as we can, and she's been able to find other employment with one of the other White Spots in another city or another town. But that'll be a challenge, because of course the businesses that do take them on in that area already have employees, so everybody who's doing it is making a great effort to help out. So, and it's pretty shocking to come to work for your shift one morning and be that summarily out of work.
Kidding.
It's kind of tough. So,
Just to clarify, when you say we hired one, you don't mean the city?
not the
you
city,
mean the
no,
private.
our own private business. Yeah. Okay, so with that, we'll move on to question period, either from the public or from council on any particular items with respect to the agenda or reports. Okay, hearing none at this. Yes.
Just on the water main up on Cedar Avenue for staff, so they're still having problems getting that clean reading. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. So they've now, for a second time, late last week, they call it pigging the line, made another sweep through it to try to clean out whatever is causing it to fail, and then they chlorinated it over the weekend, and then this morning flushed the main, and we'll do some more tests tomorrow and Wednesday morning, and then hopefully, if all goes well, they'll pass this Friday, and then we'll be off and running.
Okay. Any further questions? Hearing none, I'll have a resolution to go into closed session. That the meeting I have to declare what it's for as part of the act. That the meeting be closed for the public under the following section of the Community Charter, Section 91C, Labor Relations or Other Employee Relations.
So moved.
Moved, seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. And a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved, seconded. All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. We'll just take a short 5-minute recess and then reconvene for closed session.